Excellent. Okay, well, I'd like to welcome you all in the name of the ED Research Group, who has put together this webinar for us. Many thanks to the team for doing that. And I would like to say thank you for your participation, first of all. And most importantly, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker. Her name is PAULA ROSS. She's an English teacher with a Bachelor of Education. She also has a master's degree in applied linguistics from the Pontificia, Universidad Católica de Chile, and also a diploma in advanced linguistic studies from the University of Valladolid. She is the Senior Associate Director of Academic Programs at English UC in La Católica. She has specialized in the area of applied linguistics and language learning and teaching, from which she has taught courses like didactics for the teaching of English at the School of Education and courses at the Universidad Católica Faculty of Letters for undergraduate students and in-service English teachers. She has participated in national conferences with presentations related to curricular design, materials design, and evaluation instruments design for different school levels, from preschool to higher education, for the implementation and improvement of their English programs. So we are more than grateful for your participation, Paula. As I was mentioning before the webinar started, we have online programs almost entirely at the university where we work, and we are always looking for ways to motivate our students to get them to become more active learners in this online setting. Maybe especially to get them to turn their cameras on so that we can see them. But I'm sure that you can give us some tips and insights in what you guys do at Universidad Católica that we would be more than grateful to receive. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Paula, and you can share your screen with your presentation and you can begin. I'd invite everyone to keep their cameras on so that she knows people are listening to her. As good online learners, we can model this for ourselves.
Well, thank you very much, Christopher. I don't have access to share my screen yet, so if Bernardo maybe can help me with that. And in the meantime, I was listening to my presentation, which I appreciate, but I was thinking, even with all that you said, I was not prepared to face what we had to face when the pandemic came. Because that was a challenge for everybody. It was a challenge for administrators, for teachers, for students. And that's why today I came to share a little bit of our experience at English UC, where we teach the undergrad and the grad students at the university and also other organizations and companies in the external world to the university. Today, we came back to face-to-face modality for the UC public, for the UC students, but we still do online for general public and the other companies, etc. So we do face the challenges that teachers face when they have to teach in this context. You can ask all the questions you have about the way in which we do at Católica when I finish the presentation. And in the meantime, I'm going to show you, let me check again if I can share. Yes, I can now. In the meantime, I'm going to show you what students told us when we went online. Can you see the screen? Yes, thank you.
Yes.
There's the presentation mode. And so in the meantime, I'm going to tell you and share with you what our students said and valued the most, because as a team, we made lots of decisions and some helped our teachers a lot, but we didn't know if in the end helping our teachers was helping our students as well. And the students are the last public, the people for whom we all work. And so it was important to know what they wanted to say and what it was important to them, not only to us. And that's why we carried out a study during the pandemic to get to know the students' opinions. And because we were having a group of teachers needing lots of tools and support in general. It's not just that teachers need IT tools, right? They need support in general. It's the protocols, the way we run the program. We also had to change all that to fit the students' need and also to fit teachers' needs. And we needed to get some feedback on what we were doing. And that's why we carried out a study based on a survey that is official for UC, and that is based on 9 principles. The university has a Centro de Desarrollo Docente, and they have came up with the collaboration of many teachers working at UC. They came up with these 9 principles that lead teaching and quality teaching. The principles are self-explanatory, so I don't think we have to go kind of deeper into them, explaining them one by one. But what I wanted to say is that out of these 9 teaching principles, promoción de valores de la universidad, reflexión crítica sobre el quehacer, relación con los estudiantes, experticia en el área del conocimiento del profesor, compromiso con el aprendizaje de sus alumnos, organización de la enseñanza, metodologías de enseñanza y aprendizaje diversas, etcétera, evaluación y retroalimentación, relación de su docencia con la realidad, all these principles obviously applied for the face-to-face context. And when they came up with this, they obviously represented the reality. And the UC survey, the survey that all students fill in at the end of every course, is based on some of these principles. And let me see. I want to move, and it won't. These are the 5 principles in this survey that deal with the 9 teaching principles. So when students evaluate the teacher's performance during a semester, all the questions that the survey contains are based on these 5 criteria. Aplicación del conocimiento, that is the way in which the teacher applies everything he or she knows with examples that are appropriate and make the learning easier, right? Organization of the teaching, students value a lot that there is planning, that is public planning that is presented to them, obviously, and that there is a coordinated kind of work with all the components that they perceive the teacher is in charge, in control of every step that the course implies during the semester. The methodology, of course, is they value the fact that they can learn with the tools that the teacher uses, and that this learning is active and collaborative. And of course, that the assessment criteria are clear and are presented to students in advance, and the relationship that they have with the students. So all these 5 criteria based on the 9 teaching principles derive in different questions, and these questions are closed in some items, and then they have students have a space for open comments, and there is where we also read very carefully what they wanted to say, what the students wanted to say about our online classes. So in terms of importance, if I asked you in terms of importance, which is the most important for you? Which is the least important? We know that they are all important, but if you had to rank them, how would you rank them? There is a QR code there. If you scan it, hopefully that will turn you to Menti. And so you can rank these 5. I'm going to go to Menti now. You can join us with your phones at menti.com, and then we are already having some answers. Are you having a look at the screen?
Hmm?
Am I sharing correctly? Yes. So
Yes.
most of you go to methodology as the first one in this rank, and then evaluation and feedback, then relationship with the students, organization of the teaching, and the application, like how good am I to give examples and show that this tense is useful, or this lexical web is useful, right? Okay. I'm going to, so we have methodology, evaluation, relation. Some of you are still voting, yes? Methodology, relation, evaluation, organization, and application. Okay. Let's see what the students said, and you compare what your rank was with what I showed you students expressed in their comments and in their open closed answers, because they did both, as I was telling you. And so in terms, let me move. In terms of the survey, I just want to tell you that the score goes 1 to 4. So when the institutional results or average of English UC were given to us by the headquarters, we got really high scores. We got 3.6 for application of knowledge, 3.2 for organization, for teaching organization, 3.7 for methodology, 3.7 for feedback and assessment, 3.9 for relationship with the students. And we could have said, oh, we are doing okay. We are doing okay, right? Because score goes from 1 to 4. However, we wanted to know more, and we opened the comments where they had to write something. We wanted to learn something, and that's why we carefully read and analyzed every comment. It was 834 total open comments that we read. We underlined all the adjectives used to refer to teachers. We understood that in all the comments, there were references to these 5 assessment criteria. So if we wanted to classify these comments, we got that some of them would refer to the knowledge application. Some of them were actually referring to the organization of their teaching, of teachers' teaching. Some other comments actually referred to the teacher's methodology. Some others to the feedback and evaluation. And some others to the relationship, to the rapport, right, they had with the students. So we actually got that in these 834 comments. But, you know, some other things appeared. And then we found out other categories, such as the uso de herramientas, modalidad online, comodidad. Many students made references to how comfortable this modality was or not. That's perception. Falta de participación de alumnos was another category that we found. The program itself, the study program, the whole curriculum in this particular case of English classes, the communication with teachers, between teachers and students, and then a group of others. There's always others, right? A category. But then we said, wow, so in the survey, we were doing okay. Very well, almost 4 in these 5 assessment criteria, but look at everything else they have to say. And we found out that 41% of these open comments that hadn't been identified, just if we had based ourselves on the scores, 1 to 4, were there and were negative, as opposed to these 59% of positive comments. So we wanted to look deeper into these negative comments to learn something about this modality. And we started classifying these comments depending on the category they referred to, and we concentrated on the most salient ones. In the positive, these 10, 3, 27, 7, 35, and 18, we thought that the most salient ones were the knowledge application, methodology, teaching methodology, and the rapport, the relationship with students. And then we had an 18% that was also worth looking at. And in terms of negative, we thought that, well, we saw, right, that we had a 13% of comments in the application of knowledge, 23 in the methodology and the teaching methodology, and that 59% of the negative comments were about other categories that the survey in its closed questions was not really gathering information about. And so we wanted to analyze these categories for this 59%, which were the ones that I already presented and that appeared in references in these open comments with this breakdown. So most salient categories within the category others were Modalidad Online itself and comments related to the program, to the way we were running the program, the decisions we were making that sometimes do not depend on the teachers themselves, the teachers that are in front of the class, right? But depend on the admin group behind the teacher. In that sense, these comments were again identified in all the adjectives and the concepts that were used in order to get to know more or less what they were saying. I brought some examples that I want to share with you only about those most salient categories. For the application of knowledge, positive examples of things they said. Se nota su amplio conocimiento. It's like students value that the teacher knows. The teacher has to know if the teacher is there on that side of the screen. And that it's clear to explain or giving examples. It's like we can talk a lot about the present simple, but then how to make the present simple relevant to use, to actual use. And then examples are, of course, very relevant. In terms of negative comments, we had suggestions such as mejorar explicaciones, hacerlo de modo en que sea provechoso para todos los niveles de aprendizaje dentro del curso. So this perception that there is heterogeneity within a class, and so this request to the teacher, you know, you have to explain a little bit better. Because application of knowledge is important, and it was 13% of negative comments in the universe of comments that we had. And one said que se hable más lento. The fact that we have problems with the connection here or there makes some students, and we read this comment and many others, that we relate and got to the conclusion that that is online probably something that is not that necessary when we are teaching face-to-face, but that when we are doing it online, it is. In terms of methodology, we had that the positive comments, for example, la profesora hace clases entretenidas y dinámicas, so for them being fun and dynamic is part of methodology, and they value that. Además que ha logrado una participación activa. So a teacher that fosters that everybody participates. That's something students value. Even if it's online, that is in spite of, right? In spite of. Because being online was perceived at that moment as a disadvantage. It wasn't natural. It was a challenge for everybody. And estimula la participación de los estudiantes constantemente. So a teacher that is fostering participation, you may say, how difficult? They don't even turn on the cameras, right? But a teacher that achieves or gets to do that is a teacher that is valued by students. Y separa la sesión en grupos pequeños para que los estudiantes que no se sienten tan cómodos hablando frente a todos puedan hacerlo en un grupo más acotado. Breakout rooms, right? That we use when we work with Zoom, for example. And what about the negative? That gives a lot of information. La forma en que nos separa en grupos pequeños, this is the counterpart, es un poco incómoda ya que no conocemos a los compañeros y no vemos las caras. So the students don't even turn on the cameras when they are in small groups, which is a pity, and we know it's been one of our difficulties as teachers. Al dividir en el curso en grupos pequeños, no siempre hay una participación. Monitorear la participación de los alumnos ayudaría a mejorar este aspecto. It happens that when we go to breakout rooms, sometimes in the time we have allotted for that activity, we don't get to getting each one of the small groups, and that is a problem, right? And then they don't get monitored, so they don't get feedback. Creo que lo que falta es más instancia de práctica de speaking, pero se entiende que el contexto hace difícil esa oportunidad. It makes it difficult not only because teachers won't say or won't foster speaking, but also because the students may feel not safe in the whole context of Zoom and speaking. Even if students are sitting down in a place where other people are going around, they won't feel safe to speak. Because in a classroom, at least, it's a three-dimensional context. They are all speaking English. But if they are doing their class from the, I don't know where, of course, they won't speak. In terms of the relationship with the students, we got positive comments. And the comments are, la profesora tiene la mejor disposición del mundo, siempre atenta a sus alumnos y muy comprensiva. Disposición, atenta, comprensiva, empatía con los problemas que se ha tenido a la hora de las conexiones, se da el tiempo de conversar. So there's something about rapport that is built with the students that they value and appreciate. La profesora muy comprensiva, again, the word comprensiva, respecto a las distintas dificultades que pueden existir con la conexión a Internet y siempre se muestra dispuesta a apoyarnos. Teachers got lots of positive comments about relationships, the rapport, in spite of this context that was a disadvantage or perceived as disadvantage at that moment. Today, I think we have it more kind of a normal thing, but at that moment, it was in spite of this, we get this. And I think it's very important to put this in our radar. You said in the ranking, it was third place, but then it moved to second place, the relationship with the students, right? The methodology was first one, and then relationship with the students. Let's bear that in mind. In terms of these other 59% of negative comments that related to other categories, not the ones that were included in the official UC survey, we found they refer to the teachers' uso de herramientas. La modalidad online in itself was perceived as a disadvantage, as I was saying, and then 27% of comments referred to problems with connections that didn't depend on them or on the teacher to solve, etc. The context itself. Comodidad. Some of them said que no les acomodaba this formato. Falta de participación de alumnos was also mentioned in more than one case. And then references to the program. Behind a teacher, there is a program and a group that works in the admin. And the decisions that will have an impact or effect on the students will be mediated by the teacher. that will deliver the course within a frame, right? And this frame is the program. The way in which evaluations are going to be run, the opportunities that they'll have in case one way doesn't work. How many other scenarios do we have when a student the day of the test had a problem with connection, or many other decisions that are represented by the teacher, and that the teacher has to be there and say and express and present, explain those to the students. But how many, sometimes it's just people making decisions behind. Here, the point is that the collaboration and the feedback has to come also from the teachers. Teachers have to go to the admin group, to the admin team, and express difficulties that can probably result in some modifications to the conditions in which the program is run. We have to hear our teachers, and teachers have to hear students without really, in our opinion, letting them know that just because they say something, everything is going to change. But they have to feel they are being listened to, and our teachers have to feel they are being listened to as well, from their perspective by the admin team. Communication, references to the way in which the message were delivered in terms of tone were also present in the comments. And just the 6% of others that were not really worth classifying. For modalidad online, siendo un idioma extranjero, la inestabilidad de Internet hizo algunas veces imposible entender lo que la profesora explicaba. Hay mucho ruido y poco espacio para concentrarse. Eso significa que hay menos tiempo para poder desarrollar las actividades, en consecuencia, menos tiempo de dormir y más estrés en todo ámbito. When we were in the pandemic, they were all work from home. But then when we came back, La Católica came back to face-to-face classes, but not the English courses at the beginning. So we had the problem that our students, for example, had to go to the library, but in the library you cannot speak. They had to, I don't know, sit down on the floor somewhere. They were ashamed of speaking English. They were all by themselves there, so it was difficult. So what we did was to provide rooms for everybody who was in an English class at that time, no matter if they belonged or not to the same group, so that they could use earphones, etc., and participated in the class with everybody else doing the same. In terms of negative, sería recomendable menos instancias de evaluación dada la coyuntura, that was in the pandemic, and el nivel de dificultad del curso está hecho para alumnos que practiquen frecuentemente el inglés, cosa que no ocurre en nuestro caso. Cuesta seguir y aprender del curso a distancia. Obviously, many of these comments will depend, or the nature of these comments will depend on the level of our students. For some of them, obviously, the whole context, but also the content will be more challenging, right? Well, so this is probably one of the things that we learned the most from when we analyzed the results. And this is what I want to share with you, and that you, hopefully you take, this is your takeaway today. We were talking about the 5 categories of the official usage survey, plus lots of other categories that we found in the open comments that we had missed if we hadn't had open comments. And so what we do later, what we did was to make pairs of combinations. If one student made an open comment and referred to methodology, also referred to something else. It's difficult that one student only refers to one criterion, but in general, they refer to more than one. So what we started doing was to look comment by comment, which were the combinations in terms of criteria that they were referring to. And we found that there were combinations that repeated. 42 total types of combinations were identified, but these are the ones that are repeated. When students made positive comments, they valued most, with a 30% of the answers, that the teacher had a good relationship with them, and that the methodology used was okay too. So a teacher that it has a lot of methodological tips, etc., and applies them and knows a lot about what he's saying and organizes a lot all the course and gives a lot of feedback, but doesn't have a good relationship with them, it's not valued necessarily. So methodology and relationship together with the 30% was the category that repeated the most. That's what they valued. And the second one is relationship again with modal, the online modality. So if, in spite of the difficulties that are part of the nature of online modality, there is a good relationship with the students, then that was the teacher that was valued. Look at the differences between this 30% of appearance, this 13%, and then all the others. All the other combinations, methodology and application of knowledge, relationship, again, application of knowledge is not that valued. So a teacher that has a good relationship with the students, but at the same time gives good examples is not necessarily valued. It's just valued with a 7% in this universe of comments. The same in the combination relationship with the students and evaluation and feedback. Or even we may think that a good methodology and a good feedback is highly valued, just a 7%. Methodology and online modality, 7%. Relationship again, organization of the teaching, 7%. So it's not just relationship, but relationship and methodology, or relationship in spite of this online modality. And when comments were negative, methodology and modality, online modality got together, and there is something doesn't flow or work there, well, that got the highest with 11% of the comments. That was 11% was the percentage of appearance of comments related to these two criteria in one comment. That appeared with an 11%. And then the other combinations, methodology and communication, they asked for better communication, methodology and application of knowledge, online modality and the program frame of operation, modality online and communication, and methodology and program again. So these are salient. The fact that they are here means something, because we paid attention to all these combinations, to these two charts, because there will be other combinations as well. It was 834, so lots of combinations, but these were really salient, and that's why they are here. And we thought that here is where we had to listen to students' comments and to teachers' comments and probably think out of the box and modify certain aspects of our teaching. Well, we wanted to analyze just the words, just because we wanted to have an idea of the words they used, since the relationship with the students was so important. What are the words that represent such a good teacher? When they say that the teacher has a good relationship, what are they saying? With what words they represent that? And this is what happened. Amable, disposición, dispuesta, respetuosa, atenta, motivada, empatía, comprensiva, simpatía, flexible, confianza, paciente, interés, esfuerzo, cordial, ayuda, ánimo, pasión, puntual, amigable, responsable, and many others, right, that are there. So when they talk about relationship and we say rapport, this is what they mean. This is what they want to find in you. And the fact that you have been enriching yourselves with the new methodological tips and strategies also will make you a good teacher. But if you add to that all these adjectives, or as many as we can, this is what they value the most. This is what I wanted to share with you, and I'm sure that the results that we got had not been the ones that I presented if our teachers hadn't done a lot of effort in overcoming difficulties in adapting themselves to this new context and this new situation. But I also want to say that the admin team working behind also was so committed, and we wanted to be flexible enough, but that doesn't mean that all has to be flexibility, right? There are other aspects that the admin team behind these teachers had to take into account. And we got certainly to giving conclusions about our own work as admin team. And we said that if the teacher is the one in front with the students, behind the teacher, there is a work of the admin team that has to provide teachers with training, resources, and practice. With this instance today, for example, that you are being given, that students will demand certain things that require an opportune reaction from the teacher and from the admin group if the decision does not or cannot depend only on a given teacher. That sometimes we have to apply flexibility. And for example, for evaluations, we had to have at least 4 scenarios when the ideal situation for the evaluation online is this, but then if a student misses to do it because of justified reasons, then justify the reasons and we give you a scenario with different features, and then the third scenario, etc. We were really flexible, but within a frame. They always perceived there was a frame. Flexible didn't mean that they could do whatever they wanted or that they had, in the end, the last word. They have to run in the frame of a program. The measurement. It's important that as an admin group, we measure what's going on so that we get information on how well or badly we are doing. And that's why it was important to us to have this study and go carefully every question by question. And the communication with the teachers, the teacher with the students, the admin with the students when relevant, etc. But I want to finish by saying that in the end, this is all possible because we have an amazing group of teachers at English UC, and they worked so committedly so that this could happen and we could have the results that I presented. That would be it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I sent in one question. I don't know if you received any others, Bernardo, but I also think we have an amazing group of teachers at UDLA.
I'm sure you do.
Teachers who very, very strongly want to create rapport with their students, to have a good learning, to create a good learning environment, a positive learning environment, to motivate them. But at UDLA, our students don't turn on their cameras. I don't know what your experience was at UC, but it's hard to develop a relationship online with someone who doesn't show their face. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep. When we started the course, one of the things we learned is that when we start the course, the very first class is very important because you read the program and you let them know what the contract is. You say, okay, this is what you're going to learn. So that will be on me a lot, but this is what you have to give in order for this program to be fulfilled. It's a contract that teachers and students sign that very first day. That very first day is when we have to present the course has a frame, a functioning frame. And that day, it has to be important to say and explicit when saying that cameras need to be turned on, especially in certain moments. Probably you cannot say, okay, you will have the camera turned on for the whole class, otherwise whatever. That would be punishment. The students and academic integrity is the same thing, You won't oblige students not to cheat. You won't oblige students to turn on the cameras. What we have to do is work hard in the message that we want to transmit so that something you are saying makes sense. It is the nature of communication. Why not explaining the nature of communication, the reason why they are learning English, the contexts when they are going to use the English language, so that they know that turning on the camera is not just an obligation, but rather part of the interaction where eyes work, where face helps, where reading the lips helps a lot. And so giving certain conditions with certain flexibilities at the same time. For example, okay, when I am going through the grammar content, you could eventually turn off the camera if you don't want to make any question. But when you go to small groups, cameras must be on. And so I'll go around and I'll check that they are on. And when you have an activity that is in group, in the plenary, if you, the very first day, explain the frame of operation of your course, you can say, I can let you, I can call you at any moment for you to give me an answer. So I expect you to turn on the camera when I do, so that I can keep a record of your progress and participation, and I can give you better feedback later. If I don't know who is behind the camera, I cannot give you a feedback. So the very first day, you explain things like this. You don't just give a set of obligations, but rather a set of suggestions that they can make sense of, so that they follow you. And the same for academic integrity. Why not cheating? Because sometimes we forget to make sense of what we are teaching, to come back again to explain why we have to learn the future perfect. When is it that they are going to use it? And what can happen if they don't use it correctly or with a communicative use? What else will understand? Everybody else will understand. When they make sense, why they have to learn something, why they have to do something, it's better. And if you build that rapport with them, then it's going to be very natural for them to listen to you saying something like this. But it has to be the very first class, I would say.
Great. We have hello everyone. We have questions through the Q&A feature and also in the regular chat. I don't know. Can you see them, Christopher?
And I can also see, let's see, Thomas.
I can see them. You mentioned the importance of monitoring students' participation through feedback. In this context, does English UC have a monitoring tool that teachers use for assessment, since grading participation is sometimes key when teaching foreign languages? What we have is also the class record to start with, where we really give the percentage of time that a student is in the class. So first, we do care about that, how frequently he comes, but also how much of that class he participated. Then we use a lot small groups. And what we do is to monitor the work in there. And when we had hybrid classes where some students from Villarrica, for example, you know that UCE has a campus there, join us, we have an assistant. And so we have the teacher with the face-to-face group, or the other way around, the assistant with the face-to-face group and the teacher monitoring. The teaching monitors our approach is communicative, so most of the time of the class is spent in communicative activities. That's why it's important for our teachers go in all groups and have an impression of the students. When we take the oral exams, the midterm and the final oral exam, we give them feedback form filled in with comments. So it's important for teachers also to keep track during the semester so that they can compare and then have more to say in the feedback form of the midterm exam and the final exam. Has your research on students' perception of online teaching helped you develop a more learner-centered online instruction? I think that the whole design of the curriculum is learner-centered. Our teachers, in order to work at English UC, they give a demo And so one of the things that are required is that the approach is learner-centered. And so it's communicative. And as I said, the time is spent in explaining grammar or something that needs an explanation shouldn't really be the majority of the class, but rather make students apply what they have studied in actual conversations. So I think that we do develop that. In your own view and based on your research and teaching experiences, which would be the most difficult linguistic skill to develop in online environments? I think that the online environment is threatening if you don't have the conditions, because they are used to listening on a computer. They do all the time because of their generation. No, it wasn't the case for me, for example, right? So they do listening a lot on online environments. They do reading on their phone if they want to, right? But then we have the productive skills, and when they write, they do it on their own, and it's safe because nobody is there to judge what you are doing. Just the teacher will give you feedback later. So from the perspective of the student, I think that the most threatening one or challenging one is speaking. Now, from the perspective of the teacher, maybe doing or giving feedback when there is an online class and you want to do a writing activity online during the class time, probably that's more challenging because you have to read and you will spend more and you want to give feedback to everybody. So it's kind of difficult. When we were face-to-face, we just go around, and so we can really go when we think they need us or they will call us easily. But then you have to explain things online. Sometimes it's more difficult or you spend more time on that. So I think it depends on the perspective. The student's perspective and the teacher's perspective may be different. But definitely productive skills. I don't know if there's another question.
Feel free to open up your microphones if you want to just make a question verbally.
Yes. Maybe Christian Gonzalez would like to ask his question.
Your results very interesting. I was wondering about the feedback. When we were in English in online classes, when we were in online classes, I tried different techniques to give feedback. Sometimes it was like a group gathering like the comments that students had during that class, but sometimes I also tried giving them individually. And I was wondering, that's the question I posted there, if there is any comment on those results about like highlighting that one teacher or some teachers gave feedback individually, others giving feedback like as a group, if you identified any idea of that. That was my concern.
When evaluations come and then feedback is related or associated to a grade, our teachers do two things. So they give a feedback for the oral exam on a document based on the assessment criteria. So they write down comments during the oral exam on the spot, and then that is given to the student together with a grade. But the following session after the exam, they do. And the same for the written test, they do give everybody a group feedback. And I think that both instances are highly appreciated. And the feedback that they can receive in small groups is also highly appreciated. But we have to, I have understood through the years that we have to let them know that we are giving them feedback. So, because sometimes, since we apply the communicative approach, students are speaking, and if they deviate, we go with the accurate structure, right? And they sometimes interpret that moment when you open your mouth as this moment when you are reaffirming that you are listening, and they don't really listen to what you have really said, and that you have said something different in a different way, and that what you're actually doing is giving feedback. They don't realize that. So we have to prepare them for that. Whenever I go to small groups, if you say something and you do deviate up to an extent that is not being communicative, then I'm going to go after you, and you have to notice or try to notice the differences. Because if we just go up to them repeating, they think we're repeating what they have said. They don't really get that they have to pay attention to the differences between what they have just said and what you have just said. We have to be explicit in that is a feedback mechanism. And I think that is highly appreciated, especially for extroverts. Introverts may not feel safe when they are given feedback in front of other people. That's why working in small groups is better. And probably that's why they don't turn on the cameras either. But again, we have to prepare the whole mindset for the online setting at the beginning, the very first class, and tell them that's conditioned for the operation of the course.
Okay, there's another question by Hussein Espinosa. I don't know if Hussein is in a position to ask the question himself, or you want me to read it?
Thanks, Bernardo. I can do it myself. Thank you very much. Yeah, my question is the following. I left it in the Q&A. It calls my attention that 6 out of 10 comments were negative, even though the numerical evaluation was, as you said, very positive. All of them above 3 and mostly close to 4. So I have 2 questions. The first one is, did you take students' comments at face value? That's the first one. And the second one is if you took into account any variables that may have influenced them, students' perceptions. Sorry. For instance, a generalized negative outlook on things because of COVID, lockdowns, maybe some mental health issues or things like that.
Yeah, we cannot intervene the UC official survey, because that's the same survey for all courses, also for chemistry 1, you know? So that's the official survey, and we cannot do anything to intervene it. So the only thing we can do is to take the comments in the way they come to us, and we establish like the categories depending on the content, appearance, and frequency. So we cannot really relate then a name or a particular student with any condition or other variables, because we don't know who our students are when we get the results.
Thank you. Daphne, your question. You're muted.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your experience. It's been so valuable. And I have to say that I'm so happy to see you all. It's been a while. Well, my question is, what criteria do you take into account when assessing participation besides the time in class? The report that maybe you can export from the platform that you're using. What other criteria? Maybe you can share what you have on your rubric or something like that. That would be very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. For class participation, we don't assign a grade, which may surprise you. I don't know. What we always say to students during the first day is explaining why participation is important and useful, not for the teacher, for them. But we still try to give them a clue of what could happen if they participate. And the clue that we give is that if at the end of the semester there is something to reevaluate, we'll consider how much they participate. But how can I know as a teacher if you participate or not, if you don't turn on the camera, if I don't know who you are, if you never participate? In the frame, that's why I insist on the strategy of the very first day of classes. You can think of many things to say that day, And the way you communicate it is on their own benefit. And that's why you're communicating it. When they make sense of something, they do what they have to do. Some students, or this what I'm saying, obviously won't work for the 100 students of every class, because that's a personal decision. If you don't want to learn, you won't learn, even if you have Cirque du Soleil in front of you with methodologies, new things, etc. Right? But it will make sense in the majority of students, and that fosters participation. So it's not what I think I'm saying with the participation item, the question about the cameras with the academic integrity that I referred to, is that in general, we don't use mechanisms to oblige or punish, but we do talk about the advantages of doing it the other way. Obviously, 100% of the students won't be with us, but a high percent of students do. And when they are crying at the end of the semester because they just miss an 0.1, they'll know that if they were there, they participated, they have a chance for the teacher to reconsider something. Otherwise, there's no possible chance ever. But the first class is very important in online context. And I think in the face-to-face context as well, but most importantly in this context.
Okay, I think it's time for a few final words. It's been exciting. Chris, would you like to say something? Or maybe someone from the audience?
I would just like to thank you very much, Paula, for taking the time to be with us today, and again to thank all of you for participating, for logging in, and for the questions that were asked. I'm sure there are a lot of unasked questions, because this whole area of online learning is a challenge. But we can
you can ask me by mail. You have your mail there.
Yeah, we can only get better. And I think your emphasis on creating rapport with the students is obviously right. And we do that at UDLA, and I'm sure all online teachers endeavor to create a relationship with their students. But that can only be improved with practice, with trial and error, and trying new things. If something's not working, then we shouldn't keep doing it, right? We have to try something else. And input from other sources, like your program at UC, can only be helpful for us. So I just want to thank you for that.
Happy to share whenever you want to.
Okay, that would do then. Thank you very much. Thank everyone for being here, and thank you, Paula, for being so generous with part of the work that you have been doing. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again, Paula. Bye-bye.